Hi, this is Carol with Healthcare Potholes with Christian Faith. Um, as we talked yesterday about unanswered prayers, we're going to talk this evening about thanking God for His blessings in our life. And when something good happens, it's important in your relationship with Christ and working on a trust that He knows that you respect Him and you appreciate Him. And it goes a long way when you thank Him and you appreciate Him. So I can cite a lot of examples, like He likes us to thank Him for the roof over our head, for the food on our table, for a car that's getting us to and from our appointments or work that's up and running, um, for our animals that we have in our life, our children we have in our life, or if our parents are still living, if our brothers and sisters are still living, our kids, grandkids, nephews, nieces, whatever the case is, that we pray for thank you for them to be in our lives, our friends, creditors, different people that have impacted our life. And um, I just want to say that thank yous do go a long way. And I can cite many examples. When I was working and I lost a job, I had been in the hospital working from my hospital bed, went right back to work after I got discharged, and in people's mailboxes was a note that I was no longer with the company. They didn't talk to me, they didn't discuss anything, but it was because I had used their health insurance for my hospitalization that they fired me. So I collected my stuff and I left. And I didn't make a scene. I didn't, I just left. I was shocked, to be honest with you. So after I got done crying at home with my two dogs next to me on the floor, I sat on the floor rubbing their bellies and talking to them and crying buckets. Um, I collected my thoughts and decided I gotta get a resume put together. I have a house payment, I have bills due, and without my paycheck, because I was living paycheck to paycheck, I was going to have to find a job rather quickly. So um, I started to gather applications and started to apply for positions. And my former employer was blackballing me, but I did not know that. And I got an interview where I had done some float work as a nurse. And when I had days off or evenings off, I would quite often go and work at a different facility. And it wasn't uncommon for me to do that. And I applied for a position and didn't hear back. And then all of a sudden I got a call and I thought, well, maybe they're finally going to hire me. Well, I had said a thank you after my interview that I thought had gone well. And the manager said, in all my years of being a manager, I never had anybody send me a thank you for my time in interviewing. And I thought that was very nice of you to do that. And I said, well, I grew up as a Christian and I grew up appreciating people, even my managers. And that's why I sent you a thank you note, because I know it took time out of your schedule to interview me for the position that I was applying for. And he didn't see someone who was angry or mad or hateful or spiteful. And I think he was a little nervous because he was told such wrong things about me that he had already had a convoluted, delusional mind of the way I was. And so, with that thank you, he also opened up that my former boss was blackballing me. And I said, well, I really appreciate you telling me. That really answers a lot of questions why, A, I haven't gotten a lot of interviews, and B, those that I've had have turned me down, surprisingly, given my good resume. It just doesn't make sense. But I appreciate you telling me. Now, I couldn't say anything more than that. And so I continued to apply. And during my last interview that I had, after I had talked to this manager, and it was at another facility, I told him that I had been being blackballed by my former boss and to not listen to what they had to say because it was just wrong and they were spiteful. And all I could do was pray for them. And so that said a lot to that employer, and she hired me, and I got the job. But I'm sure my thank you note that I sent her for her time in interviewing me also went far to say that I had good character. And that's what God is looking at, is to be respected and appreciated. And if you notice, when you watch The Chosen and his disciples, they all have respect for Jesus and their following for the most part. I think one of the disciples turns on Jesus eventually. But for the most part, his disciples that are walking with him, Matthew and Simon especially, are very close to Jesus and very appreciative. And so you have to kind of be that way when you pray to God, that if you've done something wrong in your walk, that, during the day, pray for forgiveness. He likes to know that you're repenting. He likes to know that you're thankful for what you have. He likes to know that you're appreciating what he's doing in your life. And that falls on prayers when you have a situation where, I hate to keep bringing it up, but it just seems to be like my finances, my health insurance, my subsidy went away. 2 days prior to that, I had paid my Blue Cross. And I called them because I knew I couldn't survive with that extra 75 being gone, and I knew eventually it would go away. It was just a matter of when. Some nice lady had a disabled child, and she was an only parent, and her disabled child had passed, and she had died, and she left her estate to Blue Cross to help those out that were disabled, to have some extra payment, because she knew on disability you didn't get much money. So she left her estate to Blue Cross for the subsidy, and eventually that ran out. Depended on how many disabled people were using the subsidy, and they had cuts in it at various times to stretch it out in the budget so more people would be able to benefit. And so when I saw that that was going away, I called them and I asked them what was going on and if there was any other subsidy coming that they knew of, or if rates were going to go up. And I found out rates were going up on the plan I was on. So there was all sorts of things that were happening to me at that time. And I said, well, I can't afford your insurance. And she said, well, do you know that there's Medicaid out on the system, that you have Medicaid? And I said, no. So with that being said, I was like really shocked. So I took and I said, okay, um, let me call Medicaid and find out if it's true, because I never got a letter or card. So I called them and I found out it was true. I did have Medicaid. So then it goes back to when I started, it was backed up a whole year. No one bothered to tell me, or I could have given up my Blue Cross and just had Medicaid as my secondary insurance. So all that money was spent out. And when I sent my money and I asked for it back, they decided they were going to prorate it and only give me part of my last check back that I sent them, which should have been coming back to me. I tried to get the bank to stop payment, but they had already took and did what they did, and it was going to be next to impossible. And the bank form didn't have a box for me to check off that I had overpaid. Basically, they didn't have a box for me to check off what the situation was about. So, and you're not allowed to carry, double insurance. I mean, sometimes it happens, but you're kind of putting the cart before the horse, or whatever they want to call it, but you just shouldn't do that. And so none of my providers told me, none of the hospitals. And it's probably because they have a different screen that they have to go into to see what other insurances you may have. And maybe they need to just put a flag on the screen that there are other insurances, and to look and see so that they know. It could be easily remedied by a tech doing it. I mean, they're good at what they do with computers. So, but I basically had fallen through the cracks. And as I was praying to Jesus for my finances, he let the situation come and let me know. And I'm sure it was through God's answer to my prayer that, hey, did you realize that this was going on? And then I realized I could cut my brother's auto off my insurance, because it was dead in the drive, and I'm not going to pay on a dead car. And he's not going to get it up and working anytime soon, because it'll be a big repair bill when it does get up and running. So we have to have the income there for that, and we just haven't had it for many months. So it's sat there dead. And I insured it just on the remote chance that maybe we might be able to get his car up and running and he could get back to doing his law practice. And that hasn't happened. And I'm keeping my car for me to go to my appointments and to get groceries or go to the bank or post office or whatever it may be. And so it's been a very trying time, but it is there. So anyhow, God likes to be thanked. And my parents taught us early on as children, when we would get any income in a Christmas card or birthday card from our aunts and uncles and our grandparents, that we needed to send a thank you. And my brother's thank yous were always more pristine than mine, because I was the youngest. And God doesn't, he's not expecting you to write him a thank you note, because number one, he's up in heaven. But he does expect you to say thank you. Just like when I fell the other day in the garage, I thanked God, because my fall could have been a lot worse. I could have had, head injury. I could have had fractures. I could have had organs that got damaged. God was good that all I had was a few strains and sprains of muscles and tendons and ligaments, and I'll be fine. Some scrapes and bruises. got 3 scrapes on my one knee, and but he kept me safe. I'm alive because he kept me safe. So I thanked him. Just like when that car was almost sliding into my brother and I a few weeks back and we were almost killed, I was thanking God. I was thanking God. So with that being said, you have to thank God. He wants to hear that. He wants to know he's appreciated. Don't you want to feel appreciated? It's the same way. Don't you want to feel respect? It's the same way. And on your journey, you'll find out that if you do something wrong, he wants you to ask for forgiveness. Say you chew out somebody because you were really upset about something. And maybe they deserved a chewing out, but you need to come before your Heavenly Father and you need to say, gee, I chewed out so and so, and I'm really sorry I did that. Please forgive me. Try to work on my patience next time. That's all he is asking, is that you take and you ask for forgiveness. So between forgiveness and thank yous, that's got to be all part of your prayers. Now, maybe you were really good that day and didn't have any outbursts with your children or your animals or your family members, whatever the case may be, your creditors, any of that stuff. Ask for forgiveness if you did. Anything that is not really etiquette or appropriate. And then also thank God for your little blessings, your roof over your head, your food on your table, your car that's being good going to and from places. Thank him for that. You know, he wants to hear those thank yous and those blessings. He rejoices in that, actually. So, and the Bible talks about that. So with that, I'm just going to leave it up there that you remember when you're praying and you're asking for various things in your prayers, that you also ask for forgiveness and thank yous. And just know that sometimes God doesn't answer prayers right away. He may wait a while. He may be training you to do a little better. He may be working on his trust element with you. Maybe you were one of these Christians that backslid several times, and he wants to make sure that trust is seated, that he knows that he can trust you and you can trust him. It works both ways. So that's an important concept, that you understand that. And as I cited in one of my previous videotapes that I raced, it's about like winning the race. You know that you have a race coming up. Let's say you're in track and field in school, and you've been training and you've been working hard and you thought that you could win that race, and maybe you didn't win that race. You came in second or third and you were really down on yourself and kicking yourself for coming in second or third. And then you pray to God and you go to other track meets and maybe you don't favor as well. And then the next time you meet that team that you took a second or third, and maybe that person that you lost to is a second or third, which I still think is good, but maybe they were gone and you took a first. God was getting the ducks in a row for you to win because you were praying that you would win the race and get that medal. So that's kind of what happens in prayers. It's not always what we think God's answer is going to be. It might be something totally different. And I just wanted to let you know that you have to be open to what's going on. You know, I prayed for my parents and my brother to survive when they were going through their last illness when God took them. It wasn't my prayer that was answered, but God knew when He gave us breath into life that we were only going to be here so long. And it was on His terms. He knows when He gave that breath into us, He knows when we're going to die, how we're going to die, what our life is going to consist of, what profession we're going to go into, what work we're going to go into. He knows all that. He's got a blueprint. He's like that drafts person that drafts for buildings. He's like the contractor that has the blueprint in front of him. He knows what our blueprint is going to be in our life. So, just to make things a little better in your walk and harmony with God, you need to ask for forgiveness, and you need to thank God for the blessings in your life that He has done, because He loves to hear that. He loves to hear that. So that helps in your prayers. So I'm just going to close with that so that you know that He knows what you're praying about. And also keep an open mind. The prayer might not be answered. Like, okay, I'm praying for God to come down and write me $1 million check, but that might not be His answer to my prayer. It might be finding out like what happened with my Blue Cross, so I would be able to stay afloat for a little while longer till maybe that job that I applied for is, or the mask mandate is going away, or my pet supply business gets more organized and is taken off. He knows. He knows. And you have to trust. You have to trust. So I just wanted to close with that and have a good evening.